is beautiful. It challenges the status quo by bridging century-old gaps that have kept people separated out of fear and ignorance. However, there is a very realistic factor that needs consideration from anyone trying to achieve or maintain a diverse environment. They must consider conflict. No organization is without it. No organization can prosper unless they deal with it. But for those entities that choose to create an atmosphere where diversity is championed, they voluntarily invite another layer of conflict. It's brought on by confining contrasting viewpoints that stem from varying backgrounds in one space. Contention is inevitable when merging different backgrounds, educational levels, racial, cultural, or economic groups. Therefore, organizations that build their foundation on diversity need to learn how to manage all of these variances, both in-house and outside. This is why, like in the case discussed in this presentation, Erwin Goffman's impression management theory is a great tool in which organizations can analyze their act so they can present their best performance to the world, which I believe, if handled properly, could lead more businesses to attempt to bridge century-old diversity gaps.
Troy and Penny Maxwell are the lead pastors of Freedom House Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. The church is known not only for its contemporary style, but also, unlike 87% of churches in America, it's a mixed-race church, something that both Troy and Penny wanted from the church's inception.
In 2013, the church took a major hit. A letter to the church's volunteer greeting team from Executive Pastoral Assistant Makita Pennycook was leaked to the press by fellow member Carmen Thomas. The letter was an attempt to, and I quote, bring our racial demographic pendulum back to the midline. How was this midline to be achieved? According to Pennycook in the letter, by having only white greeters at the door.
In the letter, Pennycook stated that first impressions are everything, and the impression that Freedom House wanted to make was aimed at whites only. The thought process seemed to be if white people were standing at the front door, then more white people would come to the church because they saw people who looked like them, resulting in an increase of white church members.
As you can imagine, when the letter was leaked, the press had a field day. Ms. Thomas did a news interview stating how shocked she was. She never expected this from this church, a church whose motto is, "We're better together." And of course, the cake topper for her was the fact that Makita is a black woman herself. How could she send such a letter? The next few weeks for the church brought a firestorm, with people of all races leaving the church, leaving Freedom House in crisis mode.
On the front stage, Freedom House champions the motto, "We're better together." It's in sermons, it's on t-shirts, banners, it's flashed across their webpage. On every surface possible, the impression is that Freedom House loves diversity. Not a certain type of brand of diversity, but all people from everywhere. Unfortunately, their front stage message was bombarded by their backstage message. The private letter, meant for only greeter team leadership, took center stage, revealing that there were parameters around their brand of diversity. Freedom House didn't do so well managing their impression. Their backstage discussions contradicted their front stage persona. The conditions surrounding this letter create so many implications. Makita is a black woman sending a letter to a team that is composed of many different races, asking them to rearrange their greeters so that only white team members are standing at the front door. Anytime the words only and white are in the same sentence, expect there to be some controversy. But should this request have caused so much controversy? After all, it could be argued that the leadership felt the church was losing its diversity and attempted to adhere to their better together model by tipping the scale back to the middle. And if the scale was to tip in the opposite direction, where there were an overwhelming number of white people in the church, then they would employ the same tactics to get back to the middle. It's far-fetched, but plausible, given that their primary framework places diversity at the center of their culture. However, the problem occurs with the recipients. Judging by the fallout, many of those who received the letter did not view the letter through the same lens. The words "only" in white place blinders on its readers, creating the perfect recipe for conflict. Pastors are typically the principal, author, and animators of any message that leaves the church. In this instance, the author and animator are obvious: Executive Pastoral Assistant Makita Pennycook. However, the principal, the person or people responsible for the idea, is unclear. According to the wording of many articles, Makita fulfilled all three roles. But I have to wonder how such an idea, composed in such an intelligible manner that reached so many people, made it down the hierarchical ladder without permission from the lead pastors. Though initially I believed that the principle of the message didn't matter, now after studying impression management, specifically what it means to save face, I realized just how important the principle of a message is. In this case, painting Makita as a rogue leader who sent out a letter that was not at all in line with the pastor's heart helps them save face. That way, when they told the media that they were, and I quote, meeting with staff and church members to confirm their commitment to diversity and to ensure nothing like this happens again, end quote, it seems plausible that they were just cleaning up someone else's mistake.
According to Goffman's theory, we are all self-aware. This self-awareness allows us to perform or act in a way that best suits the situation. This is how we manage the impression that others have of us. In essence, this is our front stage show, meant for the world to see. The problem for Freedom House started when their backstage performance, which isn't meant for the world to see, made its way to the front stage. Moving forward, organizations that find themselves in similar predicaments can manage the world's impression by addressing the following areas.
It is imperative that in those backstage moments when no one is looking, that organizations take the time to analyze, critique, and revise their performance. Behind closed doors is where the issues are worked out and desired outcomes are established. From these desired outcomes emerge images in which all organizational members are obliged to adhere, thereby assuring that what is presented on the front stage is exactly what was meant to be there. Though closely related to the first point, the second takeaway differs in that it speaks more specifically to footing. As previously mentioned, it was unclear as to who operated in the principal role for this message. So the question remains, was this message a rogue operation, or was it one man sacrificing so that the others may live? Whichever may be true, it raises an important point. Organizations should reassure that the principal, author, and animator are in agreement about what should be presented on stage. In the case of Freedom House, multiple people should have read the letter before its release. With such a touchy subject at hand, one person should not have operated in all three roles. Running the letter by multiple people would have also created an opportunity for better framing techniques. Clearly, the bring the church back to midline frame was not successful. Different perspectives could have packaged this message in a different way that would have saved face and avoided a crisis. This lesson in footing just proves how important checks and balances are to an operation. We are all just playing our parts in this world, and some of us do a better job operating in our roles. Others of us fake it until we make it. That is why the impression management theory is a critical assessment for every organization. It creates an identity in which members can conform and allows the company to establish who they are and how they intend to make that apparent to the world. The more impression management techniques are employed, the stronger a company's image will be and remain.